guys, welcome into this tutorial. Today we're going to be making the shoulder shrug pattern. This pattern is available on my Etsy shop. It's a made to measure pattern. It's a digital only pattern. It's written in English in US terms. What we're going to need for around a size medium is maybe 4.5 little skeins of cotton yarn. Today I'm using the KC 100% cotton yarn. This is 180 yards, 3.5 ounces, 165 meters, 100 grams, 100% cotton. I am using the color Golf Side, size 6mm hook. I recommend using cotton yarn, but I have used other yarn and it does work up well. You want to make sure you have a drape with your yarn. Something that's going to have some drape to it works best, but you can make this with any yarn. Just use the hook that your yarn recommends and you should be fine because it is made to measure. There's a few measurements that we're going to be needing. For this pattern, we're going to be measuring the largest part around the circumference on the upper largest part of our arm, around your arm. This is going to be your arm width measurement for your sleeves. So if you want a looser sleeve, then add a couple inches. If you want it tight, you can go the exact measurement. It will not increase. So this measurement is going to be the measurement, the width measurement of your sleeve throughout the whole entire shrug. It will not increase or decrease. The next measurement you're going to want to do is your wingspan. So measure from where you want the cuffs, the sleeves to end and around your back and over to the place where you want your sleeves to end on your other hand. So you're measuring across your whole body, around your back, from wrist to wrist, or the measurement. If you want long sleeves, then make your wingspan longer. If you want shorter sleeves or 3/4 length sleeves or half sleeves, it's all up to you. So the wingspan or length of your shrug is going to be from where you want your sleeves to end all the way around your back to the other place that you want your sleeve to end. That is going to be your wingspan or a length measurement. And then you can measure from where you want your sleeves to end up into your armpits, and that's going to be your inseam, and that we can adjust later. So let's take some of our yarn. You're also going to need stitch markers, a pair of scissors, and a darning needle to weave in your ends. These stitch markers are going to help you mark your inseam, your armpit area, and hold your sleeves together while you sew your seams. Scissors, darning needle, always need this good stuff when we're doing crochet. This pattern is available on my Etsy shop. Okay, so we are going to just start with a slip knot. You make a circle, pull your yarn through, put your hook in the slip knot. Make sure you're leaving a tail to weave in your ends. This pattern is going to be a multiple of 3. So what we're going to do, so I have my width measurement here of 15. That's the circumference that I want my sleeve width to be around my sleeves for my arms. And then I want my length of my shrug to be about 50 inches. I don't want to go a long sleeve. So I've got my width of 15, that's around my arm, and I've got my length at 50. That's from, say, right here all the way around my back till around right here. And we're going to be doing multiples of 3. So we're going to chain 3 over and over and over again until we get to your width measurement. My measurement is 15. Yours might be bigger or smaller than 15. All right. For multiples, you keep counting 3 until you reach at least your width measurement. So I'm going to do that. Okay, that's right about at 15. So we're just going to do our chain 3s until we reach our width measurement. That's why you need a measuring tape. And I've chained 3 over and over and over and over again. Okay, once we have our chain, that we have in multiples of 3 that is at least as long as our width measurement. We're going to be making 2 double crochets into the 6 chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this should be the 6th hole. So we're going to be putting 2 double crochets into that 1 6 chain from the hook. And then we're going to chain 1, skip 2 spaces, so 1, 2, and we're going to put 2 double crochets into that next chain space. So it's going to look like this. And just repeat that till the end of the row. So we're chaining 1, skipping 2 spaces. We're going into that next chain space with 2 double crochets. So continue that to the end of the row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Okay, I have continued making 2 double crochets across, chaining 1, skipping 2 chains, and I'm right at the end. So we're going to chain 1 and skip these last 2 chains, and then we have 1 chain left here. So we're going to put our very last 2 double crochets into that last stitch. So we're ending that very first row with 2 double crochets in that last chain space. So this is what your first row should look like. And you can go ahead and wrap this around your largest part of your arm. That's what it's going to be. And again, this is going to be your sleeve width throughout your whole sleeve. So that's going to be your sleeve width throughout this whole project. So at the end of that row, after we have done our 2 double crochets, we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. So next we're going to make 2 double crochets. We're going to skip over this first cluster, and we're going to put our 2 double crochets into this next cluster here. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to put 2 double crochets into the next cluster space. And we're going to continue that all across the row. So we're chaining 1, and we're putting 2 double crochets into the next space. That is how it looks. So just continue that all across the row. So I'm just continuing to chain 1 and then put 2 double crochets into the next chain 1 space here from the previous row, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. So just continue that pattern all the way across. This is what it should look like. And just continue that to the end of the row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. We are at the end of our row. We're going to chain 1 and do 2 double crochets into that last turning chain space here. That's how it should look like at the end of this row. Okay, at the end of this row, we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. And we're just going to continue this pattern of 2 double crochets in that chain 1 space, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, all the way across this row, repeating this pattern all the way across until you get to the end of the row. We're approaching the end of this row, and we're going to end by skipping over this last cluster, and we're putting 2 double crochets into this last turning chain like that. So that's what it should look like at the end of this row. Okay, so at the end of this row, we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. And again, we're going to just continue this pattern of skipping over these first double crochets and placing 2 double crochets into the chain 1 space, chain 1 in between our clusters, skip over and put 2 double crochets into the next chain 1 space. That's what it should look like. So just continue this all the way across this row. We're approaching the end of this row, chain 1, 2 double crochets into that very last turning chain. The end is going to look like this. We're going to chain 3 and turn our work. And we're just going to continue doing the same row over and over and over again, all the way up until we reach our length measurement. So you're just going to keep continuing with these short rows and make a long rectangle until you get to your length measurement. And you're going to mark one sleeve, and then you're going to do it on the other sleeve. You're going to mark where you think your sleeve is going to end. Put some stitch markers there to connect your long rectangle together and the end of your sleeve, and then that is going to give you a rough estimate of how it's going to fit. So I like this place right here. So what I'm going to do next is make sure that I like the arm length. I did the arms a little longer this time just to give a different look, a more flowy look at the end with a little longer sleeve. You could do a shorter sleeve. So once you have the place underneath marked with stitch markers to get your underarm measurement and you like the length of your sleeve, then what you're going to do next is just put more stitch markers to connect all of your rows evenly so that your rows match up. So if your sleeves are too long for you, now is the time to take off some of those rows. It's very easy to take off the rows because we haven't cut our yarn. So if your sleeves are too long, take off some rows now and just adjust your markers, shift them, try it on, make sure it's perfect for you. If your sleeves are too short, then you can add some more rows easily now because we haven't cut off our yarn. So you can add some more sleeves and then just adjust your armpit stitch markers over. Try it on, make sure you like it. I think I like it like this. I'm going to double check that I have the same amount of rows on each side of my sleeves and adjust if I don't. And then I'm going to put stitch markers and then start sewing up my ends. I wanted tighter sleeves and I wanted longer sleeves. What I'm going to do now is take this off, count to make sure that my rows are even on both sides. Once I get my rows even on both sides for my sleeves, I'm going to show you how I'm going to add stitch markers and sew these seams up. I just counted my rows from one end of my sleeve where I have my marker all the way to my stitch marker, and this back area is going to stay open, so you're not going to sew this together. You're just going to sew the seam, but this back open is very comfortable for me to take on and off the shrug, so make sure you are able to take it on and off, because this is almost a bolero style where we're reaching behind us, and those of us older gals, it's really harder for us to reach behind us, so make sure you can take it on and off easily with this measurement under here. And when I counted these rows on this side, it was just one row longer. So what I'm going to do is just take off one row, because I have my stitch marker here. So I'm going to just take off one row, and that will give me exactly the amount of rows that I want. So I'm just going to put a stitch marker there so it doesn't go any further than I want it to when I take this row off. That way my rows are going to be exactly even on both sides. All right, right there. And don't forget that the yarn is going to stretch as you wear it. And the more drape, the more it's going to stretch. All right, so there's my last stitch. I'm going to leave yarn so I can put a tail there to sew in my ends. I'm just going to knot the end of this row so it doesn't go anywhere. We're going to make sure that we have this, because we tried it on and off. We're going to make sure we have the good side in and the wrong side out. I have designated the wrong and the right side for my shrugs. So what I'm going to do is, I've already got my armpit areas or my inseam in the correct place that I want, that's comfortable underneath my arms. And just know that when we sew up these seams, we're going to try it on again before we permanently mark our underarms. So make sure everything is comfortable for you. Make sure your sleeves are right for you, long enough for you, all of that before you sew everything together. This is made to measure, so you want this to fit you. We have our cuff with our stitch marker making our sleeve opening here. So what we're going to do is just go along with our stitch markers, and we're just going to make sure that we mark our rows so that our rows are lining up. We don't want crooked rows, so every row should match up. On this pattern, it's going to be matching up with the opposite. So if you have one stitch on one side, there's going to be two stitches on the other side, and then the next row is going to have two stitches on this side and one stitch on this side. Match up your rows, and every so often add that stitch marker. Don't be afraid that you don't have enough stitch markers to go all the way, because as we sew this, we're going to take off a stitch marker and we can move the stitch markers up. So you just want to be placing your stitch markers so that your rows are not getting crooked. And then every so often, you're just going to put a stitch marker to hold everything together. So just continue that all the way up until you reach your armpit area, and I'll meet you at the end. We have attached our stitch markers to keep our rows nice and even. I have tried on my sleeves. I like the width of it. I like the length of my sleeves. Okay, so we have used our stitch markers to mark all of our inseam measurement up until our armpit area. Again, the back area is going to be left open. So here are our stitch markers lining up our rows. We're going to start sewing. So a good rule of thumb is 3 times the amount that you are going to be sewing. So we're going to take our tapestry needle, attach our yarn into our tapestry needle, and we're going to start at the end of our sleeve at the cuff where we're putting our hands and our arms in, and we're just going to sew together. So I'm going to attach this right at the end there with a simple knot, just so it won't come undone. Make sure you leave a long enough tail so that you can sew your ends in at the end of this project. And what I'm going to do is just going to be going from the inside stitches out, but you can use the mattress stitch. You can use your crochet hook and do a slip stitch or single crochet if you prefer that method. You can do a whip stitch. You can do anything that you want to do to sew your seams together. So I'm just grabbing the inside of the stitches, heading out. It's just gonna catch on your end there just till you get going here. So what I'm doing is just grabbing my stitches And you can do any type of seam that you wanted to here. Whatever you like to do, whatever you prefer to do to sew your seams together, just do whatever you prefer. I like to go just from the inside out. So on each side, I'm just getting the inside of going from the inside towards the outside. And make sure that you're lining up your rows nicely. So just continue sewing, and I will meet you at the end of the project when we have reached our underarm marker. Okay, I'm still sewing, and every time you get to a stitch marker, you can move that stitch marker up if you're short on stitch markers. I'm just plugging along, sewing this seam together. I have reached my stitch marker. I just took my stitch marker out from my armpit. What I have done is I've just made a little loop here to secure it, but I'm going to leave this loose until I try it on so that I can adjust it, because you want it tight enough so it is fitting underneath your armpit comfortably. You don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose. And we're going to do the other end before we tie this off and weave in our ends, because we want to make sure that we can get this on and off very easily. Again, this is the back, it's just open. And what we're concerned with is getting our arm length seamed up to our armpit area. Once we do the other side, we're going to try this on again to make sure we love it. And if we want to make it tighter, we can just sew a little bit more. Or if we want it looser, we can take this off. Don't forget that this is going to stretch as you wear it. So your armpit area is going to stretch a little bit as you wear it and take this on and off. The yarn is going to give a little bit. So do the other seam the same way that we did this seam. So what I'm going to do is just leave that piece of yarn there, and I'm going to turn this around. And I have to go through and add all of my stitch markers back here to match up my rows. And then I'm going to be sewing this seam up to my armpit marker on this side of my sleeve. We already have our stitch marker here at the end. So we're just going to make sure that our end of our row is just nicely met up with one another here. Again, one row is ending with the turning chain and the other row ended with the double crochets. So you're going to be matching up one end that has a single crochet bar here, and then the other row has a double crochet bar here. That way you can know that your rows are even, and just go and add your stitch markers every few rows to make sure that you are keeping your rows nice and straight, and I'll meet you after that. Make sure you try this on. So I have put all of my stitch markers along the second sleeve. I've tried my first sleeve on. After I have sewed my seam together, this is what the seam looks like on the wrong side. I haven't turned it over yet. That's the good side. So this is still the wrong side, and I have sewed up my seam. I have tried it on. Now I have put all of my stitch markers on the other sleeve, and I have tried it on to make sure I still like the placement. And I am going to, again, sew up this side of the seam. Just like we did on the last one, we're not going to tie off our yarn. I'm gonna try it on again. Make sure we like the placement. Again, if you want it to be tighter under the arm, you just add a couple stitches. So I'm going to roughly cut my yarn 3 times the length of the area that I want to sew together. And again, we're going to try to line up our rows as evenly as we can. We are working on the wrong side of our work. So we can take off our first stitch marker there, and you're going to want to place a little knot in there. So go in and grab those 2 end stitches and put a little knot on the end of your yarn that we just attached to sew together. And just like you did on the other side, we're just going to repeat that process of sewing our ends together. I'm going from the inside of the stitch towards the outside. If you don't have a lot of stitch markers, every time you take one off, you can move it up to a new spot. We're trying to keep our rows even. And I'm going to repeat that one of our rows ends with 2 double crochet. The other end of our row ended with a single crochet, which is the turning chain. So always make sure that on one end of your seam that you're sewing together, you have 2 bars on one side, 1 bar on the other side, if that makes sense to you. Continue to sew up your seam whichever way you like to sew up your seams. And I will meet you at the armpit area. Okay, we're almost approaching our armpit stitch marker for our last sleeve. So I'm just continuing to sew along my seam. Okay, here's my armpit seam, so I'm just gonna sew up to this, and then I'm going to leave it not tied off because I'm gonna try this on again. So I'm gonna leave my extra yarn here, and I'm going to try on this sleeve and the whole shrug and make sure I like the way it fits before I secure this end. So try your shrug on, and I'll meet you after you try your shrug on. Okay, so once you've determined that you like the way that your shrug fits, go ahead and sew in your seams for your armpit area. So fasten off underneath your underarms and sew in your ends. Okay, you're going to want to sew in all of the ends on your project, so grab your ends on all of your sleeves and sew them all in nicely. Okay, so I've sewed in all of my ends. This is still the wrong side that we're looking at. So we have sewn from the opening of our sleeve up to our armpit area. Here's our armpit area. I have sewed in all the ends. The back is completely open. Here's our next armpit area. Here's the seam all the way to the other cuff opening, sleeve opening here. So now we can turn this right side out, and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, I've turned it right side out, and this is what our seam looks like. Very nice seam. Again, you can use whatever seam you want to. For my medium-sized shrug, I just broke into a third skein of using this K&C cotton yarn. So 2 full skeins, and then I have a whole lot extra of this third skein just to give you yardage. So once I sewed my sleeves together, maybe 6.5 inches on the end of the sleeve here. So this is one sleeve. The other sleeve looks like this, 6.5 inches. Once it's all sewed together, and let me give you a measurement of the total length. Okay, I went to about 60 inches for total length, and again, this is going to stretch as you wear it. It's going to stretch this way and this way a little bit as you wear it. Let's try it on. We have our shrug here. This is what it looks like when it is finished. It is a long tube. So those of you who are confused, you're just making rows the short way for the circumference of your sleeve, and you're crocheting all of these rows into a long rectangle. The back is open, and I almost make it a little tight at the beginning because I know that it will stretch. Oh, look at it, it's so fun. I love it. This is how the sleeves come out. These are your sleeves. And this is just leaving it like this. Now your sleeves, you can do, if you want to put any type of edging around your sleeve, you could do single crochets, half double crochets. You could put some sort of a ruffle if you wanted to. You could do any type of decorative cuff that you wanted to around here. You could also do a chain and weave in your chain into these holes and tie a bow if your sleeve is long enough to do that. You can make any type of decorative ruffle, anything you want. I am going to try to make a additional page or tutorial or video showing you the different variations on how you can dress up your sleeves. I like them just like this. So let me show you what this looks like. And you can wear this over a t-shirt, you can wear it over a swimsuit, it's cotton. I recommend using cotton. You can wear this over a dress, a t-shirt like I'm doing, over a spaghetti strap, a tank top, a tube top, whatever you want to. This just gives you some little fun little sleeves. I hope this helps you. I hope you love the tutorial, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope you love your shoulder shrug. I almost forgot. I want to show you some of the other long sleeve shoulder shrugs that I have made so you can see the different variations. And this is how I get it off. I just shimmy, shimmy out of it. Let me show you my other ones. Okay, this one I made in the color Brights. It is a soft cotton from I Love This Cotton. Love it. See how if you just start off with a looser sleeve here with your width measurement, just add a few inches, and then it makes these beautiful wide cuffs. This is somewhat around the same, but love it. This is just a looser, wider sleeve. So experiment with how loose you want your sleeves. so nice and comfortable and soft. I just love it. That's the back. Love these multicolored sleeves. So guys, I hope you love your shoulder shrugs. So please make them, sell them. Let me know if they're selling good. I have one gal that has made a ton of them and they just sell off the shelves. She can't even keep them in stock. So I hope you love this pattern. I hope you love this tutorial. Keep watching for more tutorials and patterns and videos.